Hey everybody, it's Mr. Hasquin. I'm that sometimes a social studies teacher, and I'm bringing more things you should know by being alive. This one came about by special request. Sahara asked for, well, the Titanic, and I'll do my best. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in this field, but I mean I know a little bit in research. But hey, let's just go ahead and start with, overall this is the promise of a modern marvel. So let's start with the dream. So in the early 1900s, ocean travel was growing, was transforming. And there's this company, the White Star Line, and they commissioned 3 luxury liners for transatlantic travel: the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Britannic. Now, the Titanic was built in Belfast, in Ireland, and it was just this masterpiece of engineering. It was over 880 feet long. It was taller than an 11-story building. It was supposed to hold about 2,200 passengers and crew. It featured a heated swimming pool, electric elevators, a gymnasium, and like these ornate first-class dining rooms, right? It was built for speed, it was built for size, it was built for status, it was not built for safety. So, there were lifeboats for about 1,100 people, which is just over half the capacity. It was marketed as practically unsinkable due to its 16 watertight compartments, but that phrase was more like spin, perhaps, than science. Now, who was on board? Well, the Titanic was this floating cross-section of the world. You had just a little bit. So in the first class, you would have had like the wealthiest elite, bankers, industrialists, heirs and heiresses, like John Jacob Astor IV, and he is one of the richest men in the world at the time. And then in the second class, you would have had, teachers and clerks and clergy, respectable middle-class professionals. Third class was also known as the steerage, and this is where you have the immigrants, the Irish, the Swedish, Lebanese. They're all hoping for a better life in America. Now, your cabin determined your access to things like the lifeboats and deck space and survival. And when the ship launched on its maiden voyage from Southampton, it did so on April 10th of 1912. It made stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, before crossing the Atlantic. The Titanic steamed west at near top speed. Iceberg warnings came in, but, the voyage went on. Now, what's the Titanic famous for? Of course, the accident and the sinking. So let's talk about that collision, that chaos. So late at night on April 14, a lookout spotted an iceberg around 11:40 p.m. The ship turned, but not fast enough. The iceberg sliced the starboard side, I guess if you're looking at the bow, the front of the ship, the right side, rupturing about 5 compartments. The ship was only built to withstand flooding of 4. By midnight, Captain Edward Smith knew that the Titanic would sink. They sent distress signals, they fired rockets, they prepared lifeboats. But here's the tragedy, here's the problem with the whole situation. The crew, they were untrained for how to evacuate. Many of the lifeboats were sent out half empty. Some passengers, especially in that steerage in the third class, were physically blocked and they were confused about what was happening. Information wasn't getting around. Many didn't want to leave what they believed was a safe, unsinkable ship. There was a ship about 58 miles away, the Carpathia, and it began racing towards Titanic's distress call. Now, the sinking, the survival, what's going to happen here? Well, lifeboats launched from around 12:30 onward. Women and children first became the order, but was enforced inconsistently. First-class passengers had better access. Many third-class families never made it to the deck, the boat deck. The sea temperature was about 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And within about 15 or 30 minutes, if you're in the water, hypothermia would definitely set in. At 2 a.m., the ship was tilting steeply. By 2:18, the Titanic broke in two. By 2:20, it had completely sunk. Of the 2,224 people aboard, more than 1,500 people died. Only 705 survived, and most of them were women and children in lifeboats. The Carpathia arrived around 4 a.m. and rescued the survivors. As far as the aftermath and legacy here, the world is stunned by the accident. Newspapers carry lists of the dead. Families waited at docks for loved ones who never returned. Investigations in the United States and the United Kingdom revealed 1, a lack of lifeboats, 2, poor communication, 3, ignored iceberg warnings, and 4, social inequality when it came to safety access. So, new safety reforms will follow. Lifeboats accounting for all passengers became mandatory. 24-hour radio watches were required. The International Ice Patrol was created in 1914. And so the wreck of the Titanic remained lost until 1985, when Robert Ballard and his team discovered it over 12,000 feet below the surface. The 1997 film by James Cameron revived global interest in Titanic. But even without Hollywood, the Titanic story resonates because it feels preventable. It's a story of human arrogance, class division, and how disaster can unfold when warning signs are ignored. So, to close this all up, the Titanic wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of an era that believed technology had conquered nature. But on a cold April night in 1912, nature reminded the world that hubris has a price. The names of the dead, the mistakes made, and the lessons learned still echo more than a century later. If you learned anything new tonight, or if this kind of jogged something you already knew, please like, comment, share, follow, anything. And you do that, there'll be more things you should know by being alive. Because remembering the Titanic reminds how fragile even the strongest systems can be. Thanks for watching.